Hey everyone, Ben here, wondering why the sim racing community so often descends into tribal bickering between fans of different titles. I published a video last week comparing the new LMDH class of cars in iRacing and AMS2. Lots of people engaged with it, thank you very much, and most comments were good natured and full of interesting points. But some veered into that familiar territory of, my sim has the best physics and yours is rubbish, well your sim is exploitatively expensive and looks like it was made in the 18th century. Sometimes sim racing can feel like the nerdiest playground in the world. But why is it this way? Well, you can let me know what you think in the comments, but here's my take. First up, a hard truth. What makes for a good racing simulation is inherently contested, because very few of us, and I definitely include myself in this, really know what we're talking about when it comes to how realistic or not a racing sim is. Beyond reflecting on whether a physics engine offers a consistent, authentic and nuanced feeling, most of us don't have anything close to the experience of racing in the real world to give a really declarative opinion. Sure, some things like super slippery grass physics are obviously dubious, but most things are much more marginal. All sim titles are making trade-offs and fighting against the limitations of current gen hardware to ensure as many people can use their games as possible. After all, the number of people with Formula 1 grade technology at home is vanishingly small. And of course, we're all using different wheel and pedal setups and different rigs, which all have an impact on our own individual experience of a title. Crucially, beyond the inclusion of the occasional butt kicker, the vast majority of us have no motion in our home simulators. This is key in terms of the kind of feedback a sim racing title can give us about what our car is up to on track. In the absence of this, some titles compensate through additional sensations in the wheel, while others don't. Which is more realistic? Ultimately, literally every sim remains a work in progress, with tweaks to physics and new content arriving regularly, so the goalposts on realism are constantly being shifted in any case. Of course, none of this stops forums of us sim rig drivers spending countless hours debating what is or isn't realistic. That's because ultimately each of us does know what we like in a handling model, and every racing sim title takes their own distinctive approach to recreating the physics of real-world racing. What this all means is that the space is immediately and inherently contested and conflated with personal opinion, experience and preference. But even if the space is contested, why do so many of us end up in opposing camps? Well, as sim racers we can get pretty passionate about our hobby, and in particular our favourite sim racing titles. In fact, a number of racing sims are developed alongside and at times with a core community of players. The closeness of those communities and the proximity to developer teams is generally a really positive thing about the sim racing world. And I think for some it can lead to a genuine sense of ownership and belonging with particular games. Every sim does at least some things really well, and so fans then want others within their hobby to experience and celebrate it too. When that sometimes doesn't happen, many can end up feeling that their particular sim title goes underappreciated and take it upon themselves to either champion the title or to make the case that any criticism is unfair or misplaced. But alongside a devoted core fanbase, the reality is racing sims themselves require quite a bit of investment to get good in, of both money and time. Hopping between titles isn't always that easy, especially if you want to be competing for wins and podiums. Believe me, as a sim racing YouTuber, I split my sim time in all kinds of ways, and I haven't won an online race since 2021. And so it's perhaps not surprising then that you can almost inadvertently become an ACC driver or an iRacing driver. Perhaps it's understandable then that for some it becomes subconsciously important to justify their investment to a particular title over others. Of course, sim racing isn't unique here. I spent many years stuck in the middle of the great FIFA versus Pro Evolution Soccer debates, obviously at the time on the side of Pro Evolution Soccer, and I'm sure similar divides exist across all genres of video games. And it should go without saying that competition between titles can be really positive, and friendly banter and discussion between sim racers is great. If there were no debates to be had about our hobby, then this channel probably wouldn't exist. But I do wonder sometimes if we wouldn't all be better served by focusing on what each major sim does well and celebrating the diversity we have on offer in our little niche hobby, rather than nailing our colours so squarely to just a single mast and throwing shade at other titles in the meantime. Nothing makes me happier than any racing sim taking a leap forward, even if it's not my go-to title. And that's why I've really enjoyed the recent updates in AMS2 and the online racing in R Factor 2. You can check out videos on both on screen now.